A big what's up to everybody, welcome back to the channel. So by this point, we should all know that the Philadelphia 76ers made a coaching change this week, hiring Nick Nurse to fill their head coaching void left by Glenn Rivers, who was fired by the team after failing to get the squad past the second round for his third straight year of his tenure. Now I'm going to start off this video by saying that all of this really doesn't matter unless star players, specifically Joel Embiid, step up in the playoffs when times actually matter, since, you know, coaches aren't on the floor during those clutch times. So I really could not care that much or care less who the coach is when it comes down to it. But at the very least, I will say with this hire, I'm interested because I've always been a fan of Nurse, especially since his, rookie season, coaching the Raptors to their first championship in franchise history. He is the real Brad Stevens, if you did not know. Anyway, I knew the Sixers coaching hire would have to come down to either Nurse or Sam Cassell, who, by the way, deserves a coaching gig somewhere. He's paid his dues. But anyway, it was based off of two things. One, timing, of course, and two, the personality that they brought together. Something to where, they would be passionate about the job at hand and actually get in their players' faces. Something Daryl Morey, specifically, needed to have in hand with his new hire, because it was very clear that it seemed like he stayed out of the day-to-day operations when Glenn was actually in the driver's seat. And based off of Daryl Morey's history, you can tell that he likes to be more involved, and that comes down to having that connection with a coach that shares his same nerdy, alternative visions of basketball. So with that in mind, Nurse was the only true answer to this problem that faced us the last, 3 weeks after losing in the second round in horrible fashion. But that's not what we are here to talk about. But yeah, Nurse was hired, if not for his willingness to adjust game plans on the fly alone. And I was quite pleased with the hire, because at the very least it shows that the Sixers were actually thinking here about how we can move forward and get over that hump. It didn't seem like this was a panic hire. When it comes down to it, I believe the situation that the organization is in, having underachieved in the playoffs year after year for the last 5+ years, it was necessary for an X's and O's guy, a specific play calling genius guy, to be calling the shots moving forward. One that is passionate, like I said before, to win games just as much as the players are, who won't be scared to A, conduct practice, and B, get in players' faces. Though I do believe it ultimately falls under the players to win, as I said with Joel Embiid in the beginning. It won't hurt to have a guy that gives us an actual extra boost, no matter how minute it is, with his personal resolve. So talking about Nurse, he has coached all over the world since graduating from college and has won championships at every single step of his way. It might interest you to watch his interview on the JJ Redick podcast, where he goes more in depth about this. I'll add a link in my description. It just oozes real basketball coach energy. The way that he describes the game and the way that, he can tell, or you can tell, that he gives a damn. It's a very interesting talk. The thing I liked most about his tenure in Toronto was that he maximized every single ounce of juice that the roster had. And it almost seemed like he never settled, especially while playing against us. This is going to be vital, as his new roster will be revolving around a big man, something that the league isn't as privy to as one would like it, at least the way basketball is played. These rosters, the last 6-7 years, have not worked around Joel. Something has to change. And with the tinkerer Nurses, I feel the most comfortable with him solving it. Maybe he and Morey talked about reverse engineering the idea of maximizing Embiid, since Nurse historically has always had a good grasp on how to slow the big man down. Hopefully they will work on reads to show Embiid his weaknesses so that he can improve them as the year goes on. The one good thing about this overall hire is I think the city, more so fans, will embrace him, as well as Nick embracing the fans overall. At the very least, more than Glenn had in the past. And I think he will be taken more seriously than Brett ever was in this city. Really looking at it, he kind of gives me Nick Sirianni vibes, with all his, positive analogy, mumbo jumbo dorkiness. But that's what you honestly need in a head coach in 2023. Like a bull who is all in, that eats breathes, sleeps basketball, and wants to find the kernel of nugget to where players can identify with them. No more boomer coaches on this roster. Now, admittedly, his press conference last week was full of fluff, but the major thing I took away from it was that Nick Nurse is thinking of the second round day one, and that is at the forefront of his brain cranium, thinking about how we are going to get over that hump. And I like the candidness because, frankly, that is the point of all of this. You know, you and I would not be speaking or talking basketball, 76ers basketball, if that was not the goal. In the past, I didn't like how Glenn or Daryl used to get annoyed when questioned about, you know, our playoff woes. Like, they would always deflect and say, well, our goal is to get beyond the second round to win a championship. We're not looking at the second round. Like, obviously, duh. But let's not act like the second round elephant isn't even in the room or real. Respect to Nurse for being 100%, and he knows what his job is. So things that I'm going to judge Nurse on going forward: unlocking Embiid, further unlocking Maxey, getting the team to honestly really believe that we can actually do this thing, and above and beyond making playoff adjustments, which won't really, you know, show its head until the playoffs come, obviously. Unfortunately, he can only do so much since, again, this all falls on the players. But if this is the way that the Joel Embiid Philadelphia 76er era ends, I'm comfortable with Nurse being the coach to sink the ship with. His coaching style will answer the question of if Joel Embiid was him to begin with. And that's all you can really ask for. I'll talk to y'all next time. Peace.